Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Tlaib, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Fudge, for being here. I know it's been a very long day. I was looking over everything you inherited. Before you showed up, the just challenges really across the country in the housing crisis. And I know you know this because you come from a very similar county that I do, from the foreclosure crisis to the lack of housing to the conditions of housing. I mean, I just look at the average renter now pays over 30% in their income and rent. You know the housing prices are up like 47% since 2020. And, you know, funding for your agency continues to lag behind. I look at the number of households who receive federal rental assistance through public housing Section 8 programs, which you know are some of our working class families, is lower now today than it was 2 decades ago. And so more than 19 million households qualify for rental aid, yet only 4.3 million actually receive that assistance because of the lack of funding. So I want to talk specifically about the importance of, you know, public housing stock that faces like the capital backlog, the capital improvements that are needed. I think we need like, what, $70 billion?
Or more.
Or more. You only get, what, I think 3 or 4% of that. Is that correct?
Correct.
So then I look at Detroit Housing Commission, and I've talked to you about this, for example, needs hundreds of millions of dollars, and they only have right now about 12 million annually to spend on those improvements. So you have roughly 30% fewer employees than you did a decade ago. Secretary Fudge, can you talk about the struggles again? Because even with the reforms that many of colleagues want to see, and I hear a lot about new construction and everything, you need the capacity within your agency to address those changes and address some of the needs that many of my colleagues mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about how critical it is for us to really understand that, you know, funds and resources are needed?
I would say just a decade or so ago, HUD and housing made up 7% of the federal budget, discretionary budget. Mm-hmm. Today it is 1%. Yeah. And so then it was a priority. Housing was a priority at that time. It is not anymore because we don't put the resources behind it to make it a priority. So until we can get back to a point where we realize that the only way to solve this problem is to preserve the housing we have, to bring public housing up to speed, to hopefully build more public housing, and to encourage the market to build more low-income and moderate-income housing, we will not get out of this because we no longer make it a priority.
And, you know, with the little resources that we have and the crisis just getting bigger and worse every time we don't fund it properly and make it a priority, one of the things I struggle with is I have a lot of housing commissions throughout my community and district, is that they're making a lot of really important decisions about the limited funding that they have. And so, you know, something I talked to you about, Secretary Fudge, but, you know, currently HUD offers a free online training for all the, you know, public housing agency board members called Lead the Way. Yeah. The training covers topics like governance and financial management, super important. Is, again, all of it's currently optional. Do you think Lead the Way training should be required for all public housing administration executive directors, board members, commission members? Again, especially if they're now scoring or having troubles within the public housing assessment system right now?
Well, I'm not sure that I say it should be required because clearly that's up to the local governments. But what I would say is that they should be encouraged to take the training that is available or have our staff, we're happy to come in and do a training. We have technical assistance in every single community in this country. It is important that they know what they are dealing with because I think that the more knowledge you have, or like the old people used to say, if you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is important that they understand what they are doing and what the consequences are of not having.
And the responsibility. And Secretary Fudge, many of them are appointed by mayors. They're appointed by bodies, and they think it's some sort of, you know, they don't realize the incredible responsibility that we gave to them, for them to self-determine what they believe is a priority. And one of the things I've mentioned to you, again, if Detroit Housing Commission continues to struggle, and I understand now, as of 2023, Detroit Housing Commission has a substandard public housing assessment system designation. What can I do? I mean, you've been in my position. people need housing and they can't get in there because of the backlogs and so many other things and the conditions of some of the housing that I have in my district. What can we do together to fix it?
I would love to come or send someone to your district to sit down with the people who make these decisions and have a conversation.
Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has